guys. You are tuned into the first part of Love and Relationships with James and Sasha McNealy. Hope you enjoy. Hey, welcome to The Road Less Traveled. I am your host, Kenndra Lawrence, and on today's show, we will be discussing love and relationships. Oh yeah, love and relationships. It's February, and Valentine's Day is right around the corner, and everybody wants to talk about love. And the guests that I have on my show today, they know a little something about that. They have been married for 2.5 years, have a beautiful baby girl, and their story is one that really expresses how important it is to remain steadfast in your convictions to God, and as well as being connected to someone who causes you to grow spiritually. So with no further ado, I would like to welcome to the show, James and Sasha McNealy. Hey guys.
Thank you. Hello.
Thanks
for having us.
Yes, thank you. So tell me, how did you guys meet?
We met at Law Society.
Mm-hmm.
I went there for a happy hour gathering. It was my Founders Day, so it was January 13th of 2012.
Okay.
And one of my chapter sorors had brought a couple friends, and James was included in that. And in brief, I really was not socializing with him or anything, but my best friend was.
Okay.
And later in the night, she kind of gave me those signs like, I'm like,
he's good looking, tall,
right,
and he can cook.
Yeah. She gave me like, he's got a job, he can cook. And I'm like, no,
Okay.
Yeah. So I made my attempts to see if he could notice me, and didn't quite peg him as, I was just like, he's probably not gonna be interested in me. But lo and behold, gave enough info, and eventually throughout the week he ended up asking for my number. Through my chapter soror. So that's my version.
James, what's your version?
I thought you asked for my number.
No. We have a lot of important topics.
Yeah, there's a lot of discrepancy on that, but anyway,
well, we met at Law Society.
Okay, cool. So were either of you actively looking for a relationship at the time, or did it just kind of happen?
I was actually not actively, I won't say actively looking. I made a point in my life where I'd been on many dates, spent a lot of money, especially oil. And I was like, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of spending money on women that I know is no future there. So I was like, I'm just done. Like, the next person I talk to, seriously, I'm not going to date somebody just for casually. I'm going to hold out and take it seriously. And she happened to be the first person I ran into, and worked out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I wasn't, just plotting looking for a relationship, but I knew I did not want to have meaningless dates, if you will. So if I knew it wasn't gonna go any further, I would end the series of dating with that person. So
Got you. Okay, so how serious were both of you in your spiritual walk at the time? Like, were you all kind of just like getting into church, or had you been going to church for a long time, or like where were you at spiritually in your walk?
For myself, I recall specifically, it was 2010 where I made an active decision myself to really to pursue just spiritual growth in my walk with God. So I grew up Catholic, and it was, you went to church on Sundays and that was about it. But I remember I graduated in 2009, it was about a year later, I knew there was a void. And so that was at that time that I began my walk again. So at that point, so by 2012, definitely I was 2 years in, had really grown with my spiritual family at Grace Covenant Church. Just probably night and day from growing up.
Okay.
So just night and day. So yeah, so I would say technically pretty serious at that point in time.
And is that at the point where you had decided to become celibate as well?
So it was that time, just in with my women's group, what I was hearing and understanding, but it was at that time that I decided that I was going to take that path, just for many reasons, just between it just being spiritually the right thing to do, but also just with everything else in my experiences. So it just made sense that at this point, if I'm waiting for the right person, then, you know, even though I, you know, would have been, you know, people call it the born again version, it was still okay for me to take that path and, you know, and stay that route so I could weed everything out and definitely know that whatever relationship I was going to be in was going to be the one.
I see. So James, what about you? Where were you spiritually?
Well, I always knew God was first and He was the most important thing. I think I grew up in the church, AME Church, Mount Zion AME in Martinsville, Virginia. Strong church there. Went to college, kind of fell off. And what I mean falling off, like, is a point of I would go to church, but not regularly. Always knew right from wrong. Always knew God was important and God first. But having that connection, that spiritual walk, I was not actually there. I used to attend Grace Covenant Church in Chantilly, and it really kind of got me going back and geared up in the situation, and also, you know, surrounding myself with my friends that were kind of, you know, that weren't on the same spiritual walk, so we kind of segue a little bit, but then I just kept going back to it and really changed when I made the mindset that I'm tired of just wasting my time with dating. Like, I'm over it. So once I made the commitment, it was so much easier to follow God and realize, like, not easier, but it was the start for me to follow God and realizing, like, this is the commitment I'm going to make, and if I'm going to look for my mate, I need to follow and do it His way. So it's been a growth for me. I was nowhere near where my wife was.
And you mean that in terms of being celibate? So at the time you were?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I was, to say it, I was dating numerous women as long as I can remember. I mean, it wasn't, So it wasn't, it was something, I guess you would say it was a routine, it was a habit, it was something, you go out with this girl, you date this girl, you leave this girl, you go with this girl. It wasn't anything that wasn't I knew it wasn't right, but with society and the way it is, it's not really frowned upon, as long as, I guess you would say, as long as you're doing the other aspects in your life. Like, you're working, you're not in jail, you're not out here having children out of wedlock, you are doing what you have to do. So I guess you would say it's more like being a man or growing up, and it's not frowned upon.
I see. So you previously had stated before that you were, prior to meeting Sasha, you were used to, having sex with different women. But how did you, like, once you began dating her and you realized that she was celibate, how did you change? Like, how did your mindset change and your actions change to get you kind of on that path of, like, okay, she's celibate, so I need to kind of get with the program?
Well, the first thing is that I met her, and I was really taken to her. Like, I was like, she's beautiful, she's got her head on right. So that was the first part about, like, I was already engaged. So when somebody's engaging, you kind of, you listen more in depth. You kind of like, you will not say deal with more, but you'll take a little bit more in. So that being said, it's just kind of, from my mindset, I'm like, okay, she's something I guess you would say not worth fighting for, but worth trying something new would be the mindset. And so that was initially my mindset. And don't get me wrong, I'm telling myself this, but in the meantime, I've heard women say they've been celibate before, but that's just talk. And it does not last more than, and that's a lot has to do with the guy too, because he will convince you and persuade you and X, Y, and Z that could be born again. So I've heard that. So that was kind of my mindset, like, okay, she's saying this, but I still really like her and I want to get to know her. Then when I found out her conviction was like standing strong, like then I really had to, I guess you say, anchor down and figure out this is what I want to do. And that's when it started to be like the rubber meets the road.
I see. So kind of bouncing off of that, Sasha, when you met James and you realized that he was not celibate, like, because sometimes it can be a risk when you're celibate and then you meet somebody who is not, and you have that tension, like that sexual tension, like he said, depending on the guy, he could try to convince you to have sex and, different things like that. So what was it about James, or how did you determine that still going forward with dating James would be worth that risk?
Yeah, definitely a great question. So one, I knew I couldn't really minimize my pool to men that I would assume are being celibate, and that would, when I say those, I would assume that would be those at church. So if I was doing that, my pool would be very limited. I quickly found out how, people were dating. You didn't necessarily know people were dating. So I might kind of be looking at someone that was already spoken for. Mm-hmm. So quickly realized, it's like, okay, I'm going to have to do this a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So I knew I could limit my pool. And then also knowing that I wasn't really walking the perfect path prior to, just, there's always the opportunity for someone to, take a moment and, change as well. But with James, it was a couple things in particular. One, he had such, there was the looks, but but he had such an intent and drive on pursuing me that was very different than any of the men that I was dating before. So he was just very intentional, just very, he was intentional is what it was. So, and, I think the first night that we actually discussed, because really it wasn't something I disclosed from the jump. I was kind of waiting for a good segue, and when honestly I was trying to hook him in first, and then segue into it. So one night on the phone is when it came up, and I recall, it's not a lot to remember, but I remember this, and he was just like, okay, well, I respect that.
That's how I be. Yep.
I respect that, but that's not for me. So he hung up, and my feelings weren't really hurt. I was just like, okay, because I was ready for those blows.
Yeah.
And then I don't know how much time elapsed, but he called back. He was like, well, maybe I'll try. and then he hung up again. And then he called back. He goes, no, really, I'm gonna try. So from there, we began making the effort, but. Again, it was just about, just the combination of, I couldn't see myself just shutting anyone down because they weren't exactly on the same path as I. If I saw that, they were willing to do the work themselves and grow themselves. So I don't want anybody, just appearing as though they have a heart for God, appearing as though they're going to walk along this path until they, entice me. So I knew I would have to see him actually do this walk essentially on his own. So I knew what I was expecting to see in the path, but I knew that there was going to be a rocky path to be taken.
I see.
And
so since you were, at the time, you were content with the idea of, remaining abstinent or being celibate until marriage, how did you help encourage him throughout the dating process and, help encourage him so he didn't get discouraged in doing good and, not growing weary and well-doing in times of, sexual frustration or whatever the case may have been? How did you do that?
I really focused on getting him connected to other people at church. So it wasn't really a process of trying always to necessarily take him to the word. That's probably the answer most people would think is okay, so you must have prayed together, done this together. That really wasn't the go-to reaction, to be honest with you. I really had to start where he was. And so my goal was to get him connected with other men at church. And that was definitely kind of I'd say a little bit of a struggle.
That's huge. Yeah, well, that was huge.
Struggle. But we actually had a friend in common who they knew each other from school, and I knew him from Grace independently. And so when I was kind of doing some background, if you will, prior to, because I knew they were fraternity brothers, I had kind of done that little check. So, and when he had found out that, this gentleman was at church, and he was just like, oh, so-and-so is it?
Yeah, I'll take
he's doing, like, what? So anyway, so that was the thing. So I finished answering the question because he's about to go.
So let me
I focused on connecting him to other people. That was
absolutely. So it's twofold thing. When she the celibacy thing, the first thing she was doing, well, I know me, I was trying to push her away because I was like, man, let me just push this girl away. Because and the whole time I remember one time, and I was telling you about the Chinese food. It was in Falls Church. And she was like, why don't we hang out tonight? Man, I don't want to hang out with you. That's what I'm telling I'm telling her that, but in my heart I want to. So she wouldn't let me push her away. I'd be like, oh, I'm busy. I really wasn't doing anything. Oh, we're not doing, I'm bringing Chinese food and I'm coming over. Because I think she knew what I was trying to do because she had made this commitment to be celibate. Abstain. So that was one thing that stuck in my head. She would and the same thing was connecting. So that was a huge thing. One of my frat brothers, he went to college. I'm gonna put his business out there, but me and him dabbled in the same thing. So I found out that he went to Grace Covenant Church as well too. and he had changed his life over. And I was like, what? I was like, bro, you know, I know you used to. And I'm like, okay, so it can be done. And he was there along helping me. I was at his house couple nights a week praying, reading with him, I was telling him like, bro, I cannot do this. Literally cannot do this. Like, I really was gonna walk away. He's like, dude, it's all worth it. I promise you, she's a thorough girl. She's legit. So helping him, and I think it was also somebody that had been down the path that you could easily recognize with. Like, it was somebody I knew wasn't gonna judge me because he had been there before. So I'm like, oh, I know this dude. So if he can do it, then I can do it as well too. So that really helped out having him in my corner. And then I got connected to other men at Grace Covenant Church, and then they became my really good friends.
Okay, so like you had an accountability partner, or you had someone that was kind of in your corner that you saw it happen, and that it kind of reinforced the idea that this is possible.
Correct.
But so what would you give another guy that, you know, might be in the same situation now? Like, what kind of practical steps or tips would you give them? So this concludes the first part of Love and Relationships with James and Sasha McNealy. Second part is coming up sometime soon, so stay tuned.